curse of Cassandra. In Greek mythology, Cassandra was the daughter of the king and queen of Troy, and Apollo was the god of oracles and knowledge and, ironically, poetry and music, among other things. Cassandra got a lot of positive attention, especially from men. Apollo fell in love with her and offered her the gift of prophecy in exchange for her love. Cassandra accepted the deal, but then refused to give Apollo her body. As Apollo couldn't take away his gift, he cursed Cassandra so that no one would believe her prophecies, even though they were accurate. For example, Cassandra predicted the fall of Troy and the death of Agamemnon, but her warnings were ignored. Cassandra later married Agamemnon and had visions of trouble for them both, but he didn't listen, and they were both murdered by Clytemnestra, Agamemnon's first wife. After a while, everyone believed that Cassandra was crazy, even though her own beloved mother, even though her predictions came true. This curse was so powerful, whether it might have really been, no matter what kind of proof she delivered, everyone around her was so deceived that they decided they would rather pay attention to others than heed her accurate warnings and thus suffer tremendously. This curse was not only a boon for Apollo and his people, but this was making Cassandra and everyone close to her miserable. This was another reason why these principles not only benefit the ones being informed, but because of their contributions to society, the people, and perhaps even the leaders, benefit as a result. Cassandra was not the only person who was cursed. Laocoon was also ignored when he told the Trojans to burn the wooden horse. Laocoon was also someone who didn't give in to all of Apollo's demands. And, oddly enough, Apollo was trying to interfere with his sex life. Whether this legend had any backing in real-life experiences, we notice that the more greedy and desperate for power a leader becomes, they want to tamper with people's personal lives in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with their authority or position. This is another reason why a lot of religious leaders and their various gods try to demand things out of people that make no logical sense. They want to encroach on every aspect of our lives, including what we think about, how we speak, our sexuality, our diet, and most importantly, what we focus on, thus our worship. We are supposed to pay attention to these alphas to the point where we unconsciously find ways to punish even our peers, not just followers, if we aren't watching or listening to those who have these apparent alpha traits or other things that leaders want us to follow. Cruel and usual punishment. It's bad enough if we resist these constant bombardments of media and influence, but for those of us who have been branded, or rather cursed, with a curse like Cassandra was, while making tangible efforts to be seen and heard, this is indeed a crime, especially if you offer something valuable. These crimes against society often come with some of the cruelest forms of punishment that society can feel like they can get away with. Let's look at our justice system. When an inmate is being reprimanded, there are steps taken to punish him. If he continues to be non-compliant, the more effective measures are taken until the worst of all is implemented. The whole. Other means of discipline for inmates include removal of accumulated good behavior time, transfer to a less desirable prison job, confiscation of items, or transfer to a higher security prison. From what I've heard, solitary confinement is the cruelest practice that our nation can still legally get away with. I can imagine that inmates experience forms of abuse that are not officially recognized, but the whole, in my opinion, should not be considered. Extended periods of time can cause psychological trauma and can resemble forms of torture. This is one of the ways that leaders can trigger a person's primal instincts because our nervous system believes, because of millions of years of evolution, that we are going to be left for dead. It's torture. There are a lot of communities that I've been involved with, especially where it happens to be a lot of influence and visibility, where people get treated unfairly in ways that are way more cruel than in other environments. The places that I've seen these tactics enabled and practiced include the LGBTQ community, arts and entertainment, and even charity organizations. These highly attractive groups draw progressive and educated urban cultured people, often to find that the internal ranking system operates on a one strike and you're out policy. All of these kinds of communities get a lot of positive attention. As a result, a lot of power-hungry alpha types who take advantage of the fake diversity type image and lack of accountability. In my experience, and having talked to a lot of other casualties of those sparkling rainbow high society cocktail party environments, the unspoken rules that exist under the surface of these colorful-looking communities, followers are treated as expendable, while leaders are given way too much visibility. Although it seems to be a laughing matter and a cliche among a lot of comedy, placing more value on a sexy DJ instead of hiring a gifted songwriter, featuring a minimalist filmmaker as opposed to an animator who is actually putting a lot of skill into their movies, and the iconic, talentless abstract painter who shits on a canvas for $1 million is a common theme in these places. Inspiration, skill, experience, and relevance to the needs of others that are not valued unless their current little idolized celebrities happen to possess any of those virtues. It's all about ranking and status for the most part. In a world that resembles a fake grocery store where cans of food are labeled wrong, price tags are switched around, and most of the products are just empty boxes. If you dare to really feed people, the owner of that store will want to ruin you. Mainstream media has gotten so mixed up with what is real and what is valuable that it's hard to tell the difference anymore when there is a trance-induced veil over our eyes, tainting our rose-colored vision. Another illness of society is when followers think they are resisting the draw to enable the mainstream media giants to focus on popular media and influencers. There's an ugly little thing we love to call alternative media, which is just the same beast, only smaller. Counterculture influence is still the same alpha dogs barking and grabbing the attention of what seems like a conscientious group of smarty pants consumers. At the same time, it's the same trance-inducing power at work, just in a smaller and a typically higher educated population. With that being said, I must admit that there is a chance that genuine underdog type who's cursed with being ignored gets a chance to be seen. It's likely that it would be in the context of an alternative media source, although that's not always the case. The chances are the underdog won't even get considered by counterculture, subculture, or any other alternative outlet because they don't get nearly the attention that big media gets. They are still in the business of getting attention. They just need smaller alphas with smaller markets. I've submitted material to major publishers and agents to obviously get rejected. I thought it'd be interesting to try to approach the same ridiculously tiny little record labels and failing garage business type places, only to find that they were just as unapproachable as the big ones and all the others in between. It's the same way with most smaller publications and public relations firms. They need attention like you need attention. They profit more from those who already have attention, thus using the attention that you are getting to get them more attention. In other words, alphas do business with alphas as equals. They sell to followers. If they don't have immediate proof that you're a leader or ever will be one, they will consider you a follower. For example, I've had countless times where I am trying to do business with what is, in my estimation, considered a peer, only to be put on their stupid mailing list and spammed regularly instead of being considered as a contributor. Polytheists. I appreciate monotheists. Muslims, Christians, and Jews are awesome. And I don't think there's anything dangerous about just believing in a single God. Although, as we know, these faiths can get really messy, especially when trying to contend with each other. Polytheists are also cool, although they have some history of going towards as well just about every major religion and ideology. They have their gods, and if someone identifies as a communist or an atheist or a whateverist, I've noticed that they can defend their ideologies with similar zeal as a person of faith would. A devout communist probably wouldn't literally worship Mr. Marx, although they might be quite defensive if you blaspheme any of their beliefs. Ironically, monotheists can also have a tendency to get angry and defensive if you not only blaspheme their one and only true God, but their saints, leaders, preachers, rabbis, priests, or imams. People have a tendency to really like their gods. Although considering how much attention we give them, I wonder if we benefit them more than they benefit us. I cannot think of anyone who doesn't have at least one idol in their life that they defend, rely on, identify with, or give a regular and significant amount of time and energy to. Sometimes it's as simple as being an Elvis fan or someone who is overly gung-ho about their company. I happen to live in a country that claims to be under one God while at the same time expecting us to give allegiance to a piece of fabric. I would imagine it's confusing in just about any culture around the globe. Try to figure out why grown adults make these complicated rules about our gods and who we give ourselves to. Santa Claus provides for children, but only once a year, and mostly stuff they want, unless they are poor. Otherwise, Jesus does the rest. However, God the Father has to be willing and decides whether you are going to get what you ask for and thus delegate Jesus or Santa is going to be dispatched. Asking for a puppy can be difficult because that needs parental approval in addition to so many people around the world who would also have to go to St. Francis in addition to God, Santa, Jesus, and their dad. I can see why adults, as well as children, don't like to discuss their relationships with their idols in much detail, especially when it comes to the fact that we spend so much time and energy. I can discuss gay rights to ultra-conservatives and get a similar unpleasant response talking to ultra-progressives about gun rights. But I find it bizarre how most people react when I bring up these issues related to the attention economy and if people are dealing fairly with their status and power. Extra money, give some away. Too much stuff in your garage, donate it to charity. Problem solved. Too much power, they simply cannot give any of their power away to anyone who might be considered worthy of it. The exceptions have to do with sharing power, influence, and attention to those they believe will somehow add to their power. This could be someone who is over them, under them, or a peer, as long as it seems beneficial. A constant way to test if people are addicted to their power and afraid to lose it is to just ask for some word-of-mouth advertising for something that you are doing that has value. Ask for stuff, ask for money, and anything else that does not require them to use their influence, and most people can seem quite generous. These days, because of social media, this is an easy way to not only get some buzz for something you're doing, but also to track and observe details. Did they actually tell someone? You can see whether they posted your thing, your product, service, idea, business, whatever, etc., or not. Was it posted publicly or privately? How big is their reach? What was the response? Did it cause any engagements? If their post did not seem to cause any specific leads or sales of your thing, at least you know that they tried. If someone claims to tell others about your thing and nobody gets back to you about your thing, it's tough to ask around to all the people that you know that particular person and ask them if they were told about your thing. And if you do something like that, there's a good chance that you will not only be very disappointed, but they will really hate you in addition to hating your thing. Especially the person who agreed to tell all those people about your thing. I unknowingly, quote, tested, end quote, this out and got results that were absolutely shocking. Friends, family, peers, colleagues, and everyone but one person participated a tiny bit. And it had no noticeable effect on my business. In addition to the fact that basically nothing happened, I got lectures from people about what a horrible crime this was to ask. This was one of the things that we learned in business training, advocating for the careers of others and things that happen frequently. And I have done this stuff like that over the years for other people who need someone to toot their horn for them. Because we all know how tacky most of the time when people are walking around tooting their own horn. Nobody said that what I was asking was unethical. There was basically nothing wrong with asking for help like this. The problem was that it was me who was asking and who I was asking. They all had their gods. They already made up their mind who their idols and their potential idols were, and that's where they place their power and use their power and share their power. I didn't know that at the time. I just got further into a depression and kept fighting and searching for answers because nobody could explain what was going on. It's obvious to me that leaders desperately need their followers and convince followers that followers need their leaders to the point of utilizing cultish and hypnotic tactics and behaviors. In addition to people already making up their minds who their gods are, there's another strange phenomenon. Gods need more worshipers, while worshipers need more gods. Even so-called monotheists need more idols. Gods disappoint people. Gods fail. Gods can lose their power, popularity, and influence, and thus leave a void behind. I'm amused at the term God-shaped hole. It's been used in things like song and book titles, partly because there's an ironic sexual connotation. A God-shaped hole is a funny thing, and at the same time, is it for real? If so, who put it there and why? Do we really need to fill it with something or someone? Can we get rid of it? If I were some kind of god, just like a lot of businessmen, I would create the need. If I went door to door with a wheelbarrow full of dirt trying to sell it, I would be more successful if I went around the night before digging holes in everyone's front yards the night before. Now that's enterprising. It's also religion. I don't sell dirt, nor am I one of those gods I'm talking about, but if I were one of these gods, I would find ways to get people to first believe that they needed me. If that didn't work, I would revert to fear. That seems to work better. In fact, perhaps I'll just start with the fear thing. Hell yes. You might not need me at all for the rest of your life. In fact, I will probably just waste your time. However, you will need me after you die. And there's really no way to prove that I'm wrong in matters of faith like that. I do not want to waste my time thinking whether or not there's an Easter bunny. Speaking of the irony, when I was a born-again Christian, I actually used to practice forms of evangelism, where I would proselytize just about everyone I knew in addition to total strangers. In those 12 years, I had counted a total of 12 converts. Averaging one a year was actually better than most of the other churchgoers. I would approach someone rudely and ask them trick questions and probe into their personal lives. Although I was really being an asshole. It's ironic how widely acceptable it was, and that convincing vulnerable adults and children to believe in heaven and hell and the Holy Bible and all that stuff was for the most part rude and a waste of time and energy for everyone. It wasn't close to the reactions I've gotten when it comes to asking people about their status and power. It's annoying when someone tries to confront me about, whether I died, I'd go to hell. But if I try to get someone to admit how much attention they get and why, this is the ultimate crime. Further adding to the irony, issues concerning the afterlife really have no solid basis in science, but we can literally assess approximately how much power, influence, attention, status, visibility, and especially rank someone has. Basically, trying to get someone to follow my God was not such a horrible thing to most people. But what people really don't like, that in this particular God wanted them to give up a lot of their other gods, including themselves. But if I were to introduce people to various leaders and those creative careers, it's not nearly as offensive, although it can irritate powerful people for the simple fact that even though I'm empowering other leaders with free advertising, I am also putting myself in a tiny place of influence, being some sort of middleman in the process, trying to sell myself and advocate for myself are terms that are considered sound advice from our leaders until we actually try to do these useless things. Why should I sell myself when they already have their idols that they value? Selling myself only decreases my value from their perspective. After leaving fundamentalism, I discovered that I had things that either had value to present to others or at least deserved to be considered. Sadly, I was better at selling Jesus than I was at selling myself. The K-pop Fun Factory. When a leader fails in the eyes of their followers, whether they actually do anything wrong or not, there's always room for more leaders. That's when the public needs new idols. There are factories where idols are made. There have been about 3 or 4 companies that dominate a fraction of the entertainment industry that we like to call K-pop. It's like the Korean answer to the Monkees. Monkees. Once these kids got too old, or for whatever reason, the public is drooling in anticipation for who's going to be the next star. In the United States, one of our biggest factories is ironically called American Idol. It's amazing what television can do with some idiot can carry a tune, flash a big toothy grin, and be willing to be squeezed through their fun factory. They are hand-picking their alphas, and perhaps even turning a few underdogs into alpha dogs as long as they don't bite back. America needs more beer, more football, more pizza, and most importantly, more of these cookie-cutter singers, especially if there is something that seems a bit unique about them. Ironically, most of these idols claim to identify with the underdogs, and so often they claim to be one themselves, but they are not. They are baby gods. As our gods continue to grow, so do their power. We test their power. We give them their power. We love tearing them down. We love exalting them higher. Just as long as they get attention and we give them attention, the system works. Negative attention and positive attention, they love it. They need it. And most people are stupid enough to waste their time on these countless deities of entertainment and influence. There are times when one of these children is lucky enough to be chosen who actually do contribute fairly to society and the amount of success and compensation they get. However, that's mostly not the case. Artists, like politicians, are mostly overrated, while the underrated suffer in obscurity and are told to advocate for themselves. This is where we get so much stigma of the iconic tortured soul of the starving artist. When someone fails at a creative career, it's a crime against humanity and something to be mocked. When some hotshot pisses on a canvas for $1 million and gets successful, we long to be on the guest list to their private receptions, while the failed artist is accused of causing drama and crazy, along with other socially accepted derogatory terms. The fact is, gods don't have to provide. They just have to be worshipped. Those who actually provide something valuable to the world are considered criminals and a threat to the faith if they impress the public without being idolized by anyone. There are rare exceptions to this, and I still do not have any reasonable examples of a gifted leader or artist who, without any support, while they entirely on their own, managed to be significantly successful. They always rely on someone to place them on that pedestal or somehow get the attention of a group that happens to advocate for their career. The things we see in artist biographies are not based on reality. There was always someone to basically open the door for someone else. They only open that door if they think someone is biologically some type of born leader, or someone who, for whatever reasons, happens to be someone that the leader thinks will give them power and attention. When it comes to my dealings with the entertainment industry over the years, in addition to all of the misinformation that people have about how bad things really are, I have noticed a lot of talk that demands clear definitions. Although for the most part, the iconic talent scout is a thing of the past as far as I'm concerned. We have social media and different methods these days. There are a lot of greedy promoters looking for that next idol to exploit. This rising star needs to have enough talent to get away with either doing just enough to impress an idiot, or being willing to learn, or just relying on things like auto-tune to make them passable as some kind of artist. They need to already have power, in addition to a spooky willingness to be owned as an object and treated basically as a slave. This is a rare combination, and thus takes a long time to find the kids, the right kids to exploit. Sometimes these kids have some talent. Most of the time they shine because of the principles explained in my discourses about alpha-type people. I've never heard a promoter specifically explain why they are what they are looking for, using terms that I prefer. Instead, they say things like, she's just got what it takes. I can feel it. They convince themselves and those around them that they have an intuition for scouting talent. But what they are doing is nothing more than unconsciously smelling their stress hormones, pheromones, while seeing and hearing traits of born leader characteristics in addition to whether they could submit to authority. This concept is similar to a pyramid scam. If I was in some kind of multi-level marketing racket, and I admit I've done that in the 1990s, I would look to find someone who would be good at being under me and at the same time have the potential of being over a lot of other people, and thus making me over all the people that they are over. The other thing I would have to do is to keep them under me. In addition to this, I would have to find someone stupid enough to sign up for one of those lovely businesses. These are systems that work when people take their place and either stay in their places or move up in ways that empower everyone above them. I used to have a brown nose. In fact, everyone thought it looked good on me. It wasn't until I stopped kissing ass and refused to take my place in anyone's system that I started looking ugly to others. The cycle of trauma for the underdog. This system of ranking people based on their biological dispositions and other things irrelevant to their actual value works for those in power, and for the most part, a lot of people in the middle. It also works for those people at the bottom because they are led to believe that that's where they need to be and need to stay, at the bottom of this point of finding ways to get to the runts of society drugged. If this doesn't work, keep them at the bottom in a state of fear, so they will feel safer where they are. Psychological and cultic tactics can keep the runts in a state of bliss, even to the point of literally being on drugs. It's scary at the top. It's easy to fall, and people suffer at the top. But it can never be compared to the suffering that happens to those kept at the bottom of society, the people who are alone, ignored, discarded, and forgotten about. It's a form of torture, and very few people survive without being somehow drugged. They are drugged by an abusive relationship with someone keeping them emotionally and mentally hostage in a state of dependence, or trying to, that keeps them trapped. They are drugged by spirituality and the feelings that they get that might keep them from forms of self-harm. Then when nothing else works, social workers, which is a trendy word to replace psychotherapist, and medical doctors become our drug pushers. And it's all socially acceptable these days, especially compared to earlier generations. When those drugs aren't enough, the runts of society need something from society to provide them the illusion of power that society has stolen from them. This is when society loves to blame its victims. Derogatory terms like meth heads and druggies are accepted among the poor and the rich, and among the left and the right wing. The more someone is traumatized by our lovely little system, the more they hurt, which leads to more trauma and more hurt. This runaway negative feedback loop creates one of our snowball effects, similar to those who get power because they have too much power. Those who have their power taken from them find themselves in the same unregulated system where loss produces more loss. The end result is being institutionalized, which instead of getting, residential care, the psych wards of today in the United States are our beloved prison systems, whether public or private. If they don't end up being locked up in a cult or homeless, their destiny is suicide. Suicide is when a society as a whole kills someone. A suicidal person is not dangerous. It's their environment that's dangerous. It's the innocent being tortured by a crowdsourced punishment where there was no crime and no trial. If there was anything the victim did that was wrong, they at least deserve a fair trial and an opportunity to resolve anything they might have done. But most of their crimes were simply refusing to stay at the bottom. They either got tired of being overlooked or could not have their talents ignored any longer. The constant drip torture of being ignored for their deeds and contributions drives them to insanity, to the point where they lose control. Everything is taken from them when all they have left is the will to live, which is taken from them as well. From my perspective, I think it's, for a lack of term, crazy to give so much to the overrated while taking from the underrated. However, you will find that these traits in every part of modern civilization. One way to imagine how insane this behavior is, think of managing a variety store. The store has televisions and chairs in addition to selling wine, toys, and vitamins and shoes. Somehow, a guy storms in and starts changing all the price tags. A pack of hot dogs costs the value of a sofa, and a bicycle is worth the price of what a toothbrush was. If that wasn't bad enough, everyone kept buying these things, believing that they were getting a valuable toothbrush, a cheap sofa, and leaving that store thinking nothing was wrong. When you call the district manager to report that someone barged in and changed all the prices, your boss asks you, was there any financial loss? You check the numbers and see no change from previous periods, and the upper management tells you to keep the fake prices on all the products as long as people keep buying the same stuff. I hate social skills. Most of the time I hear the term social skills, there's it's almost something going on that I feel like is misleading or downright dishonest. Social skills are for assholes who are recognized as polite. Another funny thing about social skills is that those polite assholes who possess all the sacred abilities are also the ones who are switching price tags. I've watched them at parties and other social situations. They give their attention to someone while intentionally ignoring someone else. They move from place to place, strategically managing the balance, or imbalance rather, of power, making sure the end result makes their environment work for those who rank the highest. When someone gets out of place, they do these wonderfully polite things to draw attention away from someone to empower those who are part of their inner circle of influence. Parties are especially interesting places to observe this. Party politics. Because of my background in media and entertainment, social justice, education, and other snooty things, I've had numerous occasions of seeing the beast at work. Most of the time, unless there was some kind of anomaly, I was at or towards the bottom of their invisible social ranking order. I also, because I proudly lack in social skills, often mess things up. Early on in my life, this was unintentional. It was just that I knew I had something to offer, and so I did it, no matter if anyone there valued me or not. Now, I call myself an unrepentant attention whore and love to mess things up, especially the more snobby the environment is. The problem with me is when I get attention, I am also probably impressing people. This is worse than just getting attention. I'm deserving their attention. Over the years and functioning in various ways at a lot of different kinds of parties, I have learned how must party planners do things. Party planners have their inner circle and their guests of honor. You know, those hotshots that arrive fashionably late. Those are the people who are supposed to be approached, admired, and given all the attention. Most of the people in the middle are supposed to follow the people on the top. Those at the top pick the music, the food, the topics, and need to stay in a place of influence. In addition, there also are several what I reluctantly call losers. The losers are not only to keep the numbers up, they also come in handy in other ways, as long as they basically stay invisible. These are supposed to be the people who arrive early, help set things up, run to the store if needed, and otherwise hide in a dark corner, nursing their rum and diet. Everyone gathers around to hear the alpha sing their horrible song that everyone seems to enjoy. Then they all turn around to see the horrible painting by another alpha, only then to hear a discourse from yet another alpha about their ridiculously expensive vacation visiting overpriced tourist traps in trendy places. Let's say that one of the losers starts talking about an epic real-life backpack adventure across South America. Chances are you've experienced something like this. It's obvious to everyone that someone's getting all the attention that has just been usurped by somebody who's actually more interesting. The result is that the leaders and their enablers find a way to get the attention back on the leaders. I backpacked across South America for several months with very little money. And that sentence is interrupted by somebody who claims that it's time to cut the cake. And nothing compares, I don't know how interesting it is, with cake. And if that doesn't work, add the ice cream. If you continue to imagine, there's a shy person who emerges from the corner and sheepishly whispers to learn more about the backpacking adventure, and there's this stealthily sneak out to the back porch to continue that interesting conversation as if they are engaged in some kind of criminal behavior. In fact, these things happen so often that we often see them in movies, and rarely do we dig deep to even realize that this kind of thinking could actually be undermining the well-being of society itself. The fact that too much value is constantly placed on those getting too much attention, while so many deserving individuals are overlooked. During the mid-1970s, about the time I was a little kid, is when I determined that creativity began to regress again. Freedom of expression and innovation of ideas and inspired media wax and wane in various civilizations throughout history. There was a period when Islamic kingdoms were the leaders in mathematics and chemistry. The Far East had often been ahead in technology, in addition to what we call the Renaissance and Enlightenment. In addition to other periods where somehow the underrated actually prevail over the overrated. Although we live in an age where there's the occasional scientific discovery and perhaps even a few good movies, I might owe a lot of that to the juggernaut of technological advances, not necessarily authentic creative expression. Occasionally, one of our leaders might tap into something special. But for the most part, our world, especially the Western world, is void of unfettered and authentic creative expression. The irony is that the rise of progressive culture and politics worldwide gives contemporary generations the illusion that there is more freedom of expression. However, I personally do not think this is true. What we call progressives throughout history are often what we would also call a free thinker. Therefore, freedom of expression in ideas and creativity is often paired with progressive ideologies. However, the trendy attitude seems to be, there is freedom of expression as long as you do it on American Idol or some kind of alternative version of a televised talent contest. My point is that new ideas have to be filtered through an influencer who is radiant with millions of followers and our beloved or our beloved counterculture leaders who only have the tens of thousands. As long as everyone is captivated with staring at one talking head, that head will just keep talking and talking with the same trendy nonsense that everyone else is saying, with an occasional new idea. These new ideas can be accidental or typically stolen from one of their followers, watered down and filtered through the greed of a power-hungry and empty voice. And this is how our new ideas are being fed to us. When a society allows leaders to storm into any environment and start changing the value of things, we simply cannot expect there to be true freedom of expression when the people can no longer tell the difference between a useful and a useless idea.